I don't think anybody of us can know if he's going to be great or bad.
I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. You can come back to the channel and yell at me right now if he's not a Hall of Famer. All right, gold jacket incoming.
Even if he is bad, he's going to run the ball, so he's going to score fantasy points.
Exactly.
And if he is good, then oh my gosh.
Rookies are the hottest thing that you can draft in fantasy football. All right, this class, good wide receivers, bad running backs. We're talking expectations for the 2024 season, and we're doing it with the best here, Mason Dodd from Flock Fantasy. Let's start with the wide receivers, because clearly that is the coolest thing to talk about, rookie wide receivers. It's maybe the best rookie wide receiver class we've seen last 5 years, last decade. I mean, we project it that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, people are pricing it that way. I went through, and I think we'll talk about this with running backs too, but people are expecting this to be the worst rookie running back class we've had over the past 10 years, if you look at the cost of these guys, and people are expecting it to be the best rookie wide receiver class. I mean, starting with Harrison.
Yep.
He officially now has around 1 ADP in best ball drafts, and even in your regular home league, he's locked and loaded into the second round. There's no way you get him around 3.
Early second round, too. It's not even like late second round when there's so much options on the board. I think if you want Marvin, we did a home draft 2 days ago. I think he went at the 201 or something like that. 202.
Where does he go in the Flock League tomorrow?
Oh, I don't know. Depends on who's on the board. I think he probably goes mid-second for us.
So what are you thinking in terms of this overall offense with Marvin? Because he's priced in a way as a low-end wide receiver 1 that – you draft him, he's in your lineup week 1. Obviously,
yes.
You're not waiting to see it. You're not hoping that, oh, this is somebody that has a high ceiling in the second half of the season. He's priced in a way that he has to be a low-end wide receiver 1 kind of the second that he steps on field, or a high-end wide receiver 2.
Yes, literally. I mean, you're drafting him in that range where it's players that you expect to get 25+% of the target share. You know, so I guess my projection, I'm sure you feel the same way, the number 1 option in this offense. I know we got Trey McBride. I think the target share might be similar, but I do expect Marvin to be the dominant target share player. And I guess we should talk about it. Like, should we be set for any, I guess, like our expectations are so high. Should we maybe lower it a little bit? Or are you feeling like straight out of the gate, so it'll be like
personally, I haven't drafted a lot of Harrison in my own drafts. My thought process overall is if you compare him to the other wide receivers he's going against, comparing him to Drake London, comparing him to Nico Collins, comparing him to these guys that also kind of have a wide range of outcomes, so you can make a very strong case for, but also you can make a case against. You know, I think round 2 at wide receiver, it's all one massive flat tier. So while I haven't drafted a lot of Harrison myself, I don't have the stones to come out and say, don't draft him.
Yeah.
Because I think the options going around him, it's hard to make an argument, oh, Drake London's 10 times. But I can't say that.
And you know what? Like, we think back, Justin Jefferson, rookie year, sets records. Jamar Chase, rookie year, sets records. And we just had Puka Nacua, rookie year, sets records. So people are less and less scared to draft these guys.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned about his ADP. Marvin Harrison has the highest ADP of any rookie wide receiver ever. So does Malik Nabers.
Yeah.
Malik Nabers also the highest ever drafted rookie wide receiver.
Besides Harrison.
Exactly.
And I'm okay saying that, like, yeah, Harrison, top 10. I mean, top elite level prospect, good offense, draft him if you want to. Nabers, on the other hand, at least in best ball drafts, he goes to the 2-3 turn. In your home league, if you're playing with your buddies on ESPN,
I got him 3-4 turn in our home league.
Yeah, if you get him in the 4th, I'm not gonna argue against it.
Yeah.
But my thing is, I went and historically looked at the top 5 offenses in the NFL every season over the past 10 years, the bottom 5 offenses in the NFL every year over the past 10 years, and looked at the wide receiver ones in those offenses. So 50 top end offense wide receiver ones, 50 bottom end, and you had more finishers in the good offenses inside the top 3 of the wide receiver position than the bad offenses had inside the top 24. If you look at sportsbooks right now, they are projecting out the Giants to be the 3rd or the 4th worst offense in the NFL this season. So
don't tell Badaki that, okay?
Yeah, I'm sitting here going, I think Malik Nabers, from a dynasty perspective, he's everything you'd ever want. He's a top-end player. There's no target competition. If the Giants are a better offense next year, and I think they have a good shot to be if they go through and they change the quarterback situation here, I think Malik Nabers can crush in 2025. But if you're taking him in round 3 this year, I think the expectations are a little bit too high, not because of Nabers himself. I think he's a great prospect, but because the offense that he's in.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there. I think right now round 4 is where I'm comfortable as well. Yeah. You know, in some home leagues, round 5 or 6, you could probably snag him if people are a little bit more concerned. preseason week 2, and we got to be careful not to make too many conclusions from preseason, but with the starters, they played a significant amount of time. Daniel Jones should have thrown 3 picks, so we'll ignore that. But 33% target share with the starters. If we get a 30% target share, I think he's a very safe player.
But there's a big difference between a 33% target share off of 6 pass attempts
or
whatever it is versus 600 pass attempts.
That's definitely true.
You know what I mean? So I look at that and go, nothing changes in my mind with Malik Nabers. We already knew there's nobody else to throw the ball to. We already knew that. We already knew Daniel Jones is horrible. So when we see Daniel Jones throw a couple interceptions, throw a pick 6, we see Malik Nabers dominate targets in a very bad offense, I go, okay, this confirms what we knew. You know what I mean? So nothing changes. I think what's interesting, if you look at the preseason, is we go over to Rome Odunze. This is a wide receiver that you have the big play, and at the same time, Keenan Allen there are all the reports saying, oh, Keenan Allen's fat, Keenan Allen's slow, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I think he's 215 still. I don't think
I
he's
don't
actually 230.
All I've seen is in drafts, Keenan Allen sliding, Rome Odunze going up. Previously, the ADP gap between them was pretty wide.
Pretty big, yeah.
Where now it's definitely closing in on sharper platforms like best ball leagues or sleeper. I noticed if you're looking at ESPN Yahoo, he's still going around pick 100. So for the love of God, I think we can both agree if you get Rome pick 100, he's an auto pick. Like you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
But where are you in terms of like projecting out Rome versus Keenan this year at this point?
I'll be honest, like I think I might miss out on some Chicago Bears wide receivers this year. Just basically, we are expecting Caleb Williams to be that guy straight away. And I know the highlights look very good, but if you actually watch that game, I think he was 5 for 18 passing.
I would have never guessed. The highlights look so good.
Exactly, right? Like you look on Twitter, like, wow, this is the best offense I've ever seen. So I'm not, and by the way, I like Caleb Williams. I think he'll be good, but I'm trying to lower my expectations. You know, if you look historically, rookie quarterbacks supporting a top 12 finish, it's not very high. You know, if you look at even top 24, I think it's around, if I'm not mistaken, like 29% of the time they've supported a top 24 wide receiver. So now we're thinking about the number 2 behind DJ Moore at best. Do you know what I mean? So between Keenan and Rome, I'm not really interested in Keenan, but if Rome falls far enough, I'm like, all right, I'll take the shot on the upside. I guess my question is, I'm concerned that in 2 wide receiver sets, we won't see enough Rome, but towards the second half of the season, you might. So you might be a good trade target. Yeah. But I guess like overall, if you were to say points per game finish, top, what's the ceiling and floor outcome for Rome in your opinion here?
I think the floor is Rome's not startable. This offense could be below average. Love Caleb, but it is possible.
It's all a projection right now.
Exactly. If we're talking floor, it is possible for the Bears to be a disappointing offense. It is possible for Rome to be the wide receiver 3 in a disappointing offense. So I think worst case scenario, Rome's not startable in fantasy. Best case scenario, Keenan is dust. The Chargers know that, which is why they get rid of him. Best case scenario, the Bears are a top 10 offense, and Caleb hits immediately. Doesn't have to be to Stroud's level, but somewhere in between Stroud and the average rookie quarterback. And Rome is the locked and loaded wide receiver 1B behind DJ Moore. So I think the range of outcomes-wise, Rome is anywhere from unstartable to high-end wide receiver 2 in fantasy as a rookie.
To league winner.
And if you look at where he's going, I think it all comes down to price, right? If you have to take him in round 5, probably doesn't make sense there. Yeah. But if you're in ESPN draft, you're in a Yahoo draft, and you look at these ADPs, his ADP is like 119. I know if your league mates know what they're doing, you're not getting him at 119, but still, if you get him at you get him at 90.
And another thing to consider here, like I agree, like the price on those formats specifically, very good. Keenan is not historically an injury-prone player, but in the last 2 years, he's missed about 10 games. Those hamstring injuries, as you get older, we know with Julio Jones, that becomes a pretty big deal. But yeah, I think you're right. Very wide range of outcome. There's 2 other rookie wide receivers I just want to quickly hit on. We don't spend too much time. McConkey's my guy for me this year. Big fan of him. And then Xavier Worthy. I think those are the 2 wide receivers that are like very reasonably priced right now. Unfortunately, I think Worthy's going to I think he's going to rise a little too high. So between those 2 names, who are, like, let's say it's round 7. Both of those names are on the board. McConkey, Xavier Worthy. Who do you feel most comfortable betting on there?
I'm going Worthy. I think the tiebreaker is Ladd getting banged up in training camp, Herbert getting banged up in training camp, the Chargers being a little bit tougher to project this year. I think, honestly, the Chargers offseason would have been great for Herbert to stay healthy. It would have been great for Ladd to stay healthy. It's a new coaching staff, ton of moving pieces. I think the missed time there is going to impact that offense more than it would have others. And then Xavier Worthy, hook 'em horns, obviously.
Hook 'em.
Phenomenal decision maker. At 18 years old, he knew he was smart enough to go to the University of Texas.
Came to Austin, Texas,
moved to Austin,
baby.
Texas. Like, the guy's a smart kid.
He knows what he's doing.
I mean?
Yeah.
And then I liked him as a prospect. An offense that projects to be a top 3 offense of the NFL this season. I think Hollywood is dust. I'm completely out on Hollywood Brown
That's
this year.
a good thing to talk about then. So Hollywood, there was this conversation he might be the wide receiver 1 in some eyes, not mine. I think it's Rashee Rice. But so you think Hollywood will be the number 3 in target share, or just over the season it will transition to where Worthy eventually takes his place in, like, let's say 12 personnel?
I think Worthy could get the role week 1 because of the Hollywood injury and never give it to Hollywood. I think they're both going to run a lot of routes. I think they're both going to play a lot of snaps. But I think you have a crazy ceiling with Worthy. What I want to ask you about, in terms of Ladd, I didn't like Ladd as a prospect, but phenomenal situation. Someone else I didn't like as a prospect, but phenomenal situation, and I can't stop drafting him because he goes as a wide receiver 5, is Keon Coleman. Because going back to what I was talking about previously, if you look at the historical data in terms of wide receivers in good offenses put up crazy numbers.
Yep.
Wide receivers in bad offenses are absolutely garbage. Keon Coleman's playing alongside an injured Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, who we maybe think could potentially one day possibly be good. He's never shown it.
Yeah.
And Keon Coleman essentially is a round 1 NFL draft pick. Even if I didn't like him as a prospect, I think if you can get him as your wide receiver 5 with no expectations early in the year, just hoping for upside later on.
Yeah.
Keon is somebody that I've been drafting a ton.
What we've been saying on the channel, and I kind of feel the same way, there's been a lot of Keon clips, and, I don't, there are some concerns I have with him being like the guy out of the gate. But what I will say, it's all about price for me with Keon, because I agree, like, good offense. I think the Bills and the Chargers are 2 offenses that have wide receivers priced really reasonably, that are just great picks as, like, no risk, high reward type players. So with Keon, I'm like, with the Bills, I could personally see it spread out between all 3 of those names. You don't really want to start any of them. It's kind of like every week it's someone different. Kind of like Kansas City last year, where Kincaid is the guy, but maybe to not as high of an extent. But I think he's the type of dude. I mean, when we were scouting him, I was like, if he finds, like, Kenny Golladay was one of my comps. If he finds, like, his Matt Stafford, someone who can sling the ball around, like, this guy could put up 15 receiving touchdowns. So I think that's what he's found in Josh Allen. So I see the upside. It's all about the price. If you're telling me I have to take Keon 12-man league round 6, but I can get Shakir in round 11, I'm probably taking Shakir all day. But
real quick before we move to running backs, can you rank for me this season, not dynasty, just for this year?
Okay.
Worthy, Ladd, Brian Thomas Jr., Keon Coleman.
Okay, Worthy, Ladd, Brian Thomas Jr., Keon Coleman. I'll probably go Brian first.
Okay.
I just think he has the clearest path to be the number 1 wide receiver there. Big fan of his profile. But the next, I would say Xavier and Ladd are pretty much tied for me. I think there's a little bit overblown about the offense in Los Angeles. Jim Harbaugh, every year as a head coach in the NFL, has a top 27 wide receiver in fantasy football. And outside of one of those years, it's been top 20 every single time. So I get it. He runs the ball a lot. He's also going to pass it. And then as far as Keon goes, I just see too many ranges of outcome with that entire wide receiver room that I would probably put him last.
Okay, yeah. Mine, essentially, I go Worthy, Thomas, then between Ladd, Keon. I previously had Ladd, but I think I'm going to flip it to Keon's over him.
I can see it, though. Like, all those guys, that I think just draft them. They're all really good price and good options. Let's move to running back. Weird running back class, right?
Yes.
Like,
so people are saying it's horrible, but it's priced to be the worst running back class we've had over the past 10 years.
Priced well. I want to start with Trey Benson, if that's okay.
Okay, let's do it.
I love Trey Benson. This was like, a biased guy for me. Loved him back in 2022. So there is like 2 sides of the fantasy community right now. Guys who just won't draft Trey Benson because they think James Conner is still like an incredible running back. Look at what he did last year. And there's a side like me who's like, well, he's a 10th round pick. James Conner's never finished the season healthy. And I think that based off film and based off the draft capital, early 3rd round pick, he could be a very good player. We've seen round 3 running backs make an instant impact very often in the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So where do you stand on that? Are you targeting Benson, or you're like, James Conner's a guy?
I'm targeting him a lot because of the format that I'm drafting in. I'm drafting in a lot of best ball leagues where we're trying to optimize for weeks 15, 16, 17.
Sure.
I think is a very high ceiling there. He's actually going behind Blake Corum now, which I think is nuts. But if you're in a shallow redraft league where you're really going to be churning the waiver wire a ton at the beginning of the season, which a lot of people watching this are playing in a league where it's a 10-team format, start 2 receivers, 1 flex, and you only have 6 bench spots. There, taking Trey Benson's going to be very difficult because you're going to be essentially tying one hand behind your back for the waiver wire at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
But if you're playing in a deeper league, or if you're playing in a league that's like best ball where you're trying to find as many points as you can in the final 3 weeks, I love the Benson profile, and I've drafted him a ton.
Okay. I kind of feel the same way. Jonathon Brooks. Love Jonathon Brooks. So fun to watch out of Texas. Unfortunately, tears his ACL in December of last year. So won't even, I mean, you know, we're what, 7 months, almost 8 months out. Expectations this year.
So
Chuba's going to start, but when does this change?
I think he's unstartable for the first half of the season. The second half of the season, he's a top 24 running back with top 12 upside.
Yes.
So I think it's almost the same exact conversation as with Trey Benson. But I would say in your regular redraft league, if you can throw him on the IR, immaculate. I love taking
That's
Jonathon
a great
Brooks.
point.
Because you can take Brooks near the end of your draft, throw him on the IR, and get an extra roster spot, essentially, and pick up another guy off waivers. However, if I know some people aren't going to be playing in leagues that you're able to do that, and you have to take Brooks and you have to leave him on your bench. And there, it's a similar argument to Trey Benson, where you're going to be playing with one hand tied behind your back.
Yep.
So I think with both running backs, it's just like, I think they both have a lot of upside for the second half of the year. You kind of have to understand what you're dealing with. I definitely prefer Jonathon Brooks because I think he's the better running back, less competition. And if you have an IR, you essentially get him as a free roster spot. There with Benson, you don't. But yeah, I'm completely fine drafting both guys depending on the situation that I'm in with the team.
By the way, I just want to throw in there, like, it's very common to like trash on the Panthers, bad offense. Like, I totally get that. But I think the best fantasy players year in and year out project what changes will be in the NFL rather than just looking at last year. So if you think about what's happened in Carolina, the entire offseason has been built around this offense, right? You bring in Dave Canales, quarterback whisperer, help Geno Smith, help Baker Mayfield revive their careers. You bring in a guard in Robert Hunt. You bring in Xavier Legette, Deontay Johnson. So there'll be a lot more opportunities for this team to spread the ball out. And also the defense won't be so focused on the run game. So I think that offense might be better than people give it credit for. Two other running backs I wanted to talk about, maybe three, we'll see. But Blake Corum, also want to talk about Jaylen Wright, and maybe your thoughts on Marshawn Lloyd, those three.
So Blake Corum, definitely worth the roster spot. I think he's a premium handcuff. I don't think you're ever going to be able to start him in a regular redraft league unless Kyren Williams goes down. But in a best ball league, maybe you get a random usable week if he scores a touchdown, but you're just not going to be able to predict it.
By the way, just on that, I didn't realize how many injuries Kyren Williams has dealt with in his 2-year career. Have you seen that, the list?
He's a smaller,
it's like
he's smaller back.
six deep. So, sorry, continue. But like Blake Corum, he could be a league winner for sure if an injury happens.
But do you think he'll be I think he'll have a role from week to week perspective. I just don't think he'll be large enough to ever comfortably start him if you're having to try to predict when the random touchdown's going to come. So I think he's a premium handcuff back. Like, and he's priced in a way that he's like more expensive than Tyler Algier. Yeah. And I look at it thinking like, okay, I'm not going to be able to start either guy unless there's an injury.
Yes.
I've seen the ceiling for someone like Tyler Algier before. Where I haven't seen it with Blake Corum. So I haven't drafted a ton of Blake Corum. But also, I'm like in best ball drafts, I can't stop drafting Kyren in round 3, so maybe I'm a little biased.
Yeah, so Kyren, like we said, long injury history. But what I'm confused about this offseason is the reports of how they plan to use Blake Corum. And they've talked about him as like a third down back. He's not a very good receiver on film, so I'm a little bit confused. I thought he would be their goal line replacement for Kyren at some point. So that's a bit confusing to me. I can't read what they're doing, but what I know is Sean McVay knows how to use his running backs for fantasy football. Jaylen Wright, kind of same thing, right?
For Jaylen Wright, I think you can draft him in best ball. I don't think he's rosterable in a shallow redraft league unless you were to get an injury to a top. If Mostert goes down or if HN goes down, I'm running the waiver wire to picking up Jaylen Wright. But what path do you ever have to know, okay, this is the week I start Jaylen Wright outside of an injury?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're right. Deeper leagues, it makes a lot more sense. Marshawn Lloyd, I don't know that there's much to talk about. He hasn't really been able to establish himself because of those injuries. They keep piling up. And they're saying A.J. Dillon's the RB2. I think they mean it. I don't know. I mean,
I don't think it matters who's the RB2, who's the RB3. I think there's enough signal that if Josh Jacobs were to go down, it's a split backfield. Whether Marshawn Lloyd's getting 60%, whether A.J. Dillon's getting 60%, I think that they've clearly indicated that Jacobs goes down, both running backs will touch the ball. I don't know Marshawn Lloyd will be startable in an instance that he's sharing a backfield with A.J. Dillon. Yeah. So in best ball, you can draft him just because you have to go so deep. But in a regular redraft league, I don't know if I'm going to roster him. Jacobs goes down. Of course, we're going to go pick him up because maybe we're wrong. Maybe Dillon's dust. Like, we don't know. But I'm just not going to be planning on drafting him and then holding him on my roster for the what if.
Yeah.
He then jumps to being running back 2.
Yeah.
Then what if the running back 1 goes down? Because he'll never be startable if Jacobs is healthy in the backfield.
I agree. All right. Let's cover quarterbacks just real quick, if that's okay. Do you want to talk about it?
We can speed through it.
Okay. Let's go quarterbacks. So quarterbacks, I feel like Daniels, Caleb are really what we should talk about specifically for redraft this year. Let's just start. You're on the board. You're in round 11. You don't have a quarterback yet. You know, the Tuas are on the board. The Goffs are on the board. But you're going to go a high upside quarterback and then get a safety later. Mm-hmm. So which of these guys are you preferring right now?
4-point passing touchdown, you go Jayden Daniels, just straight up rushing upside. Even if Daniels is bad, which he may be, I have no idea. I don't think anybody of us can accurately
pretty good.
Know if he's going to be great or bad.
I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. You can come back to the channel and yell at me right now if he's not a Hall of Famer. All right, gold jacket incoming.
But even if he is bad, he's going to run the ball, so he's going to score fantasy points.
Exactly.
And if he is good, then oh my gosh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think Jayden Daniels, you can get him double-digit rounds. Take him and, like, say, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence super late.
Yeah.
Phenomenal QB room and just play the matchups between the two. And I'd almost say the same thing about Caleb. I definitely move Caleb down a bit. I do want to point out, though, specifically for Jayden Daniels, where we're banking so much on the rushing upside, I do think the passing volume is going to be lower. So for people who play in 6-point passing touchdown formats, I think Daniels is at a less of a premium there.
Sure.
But in 4-point passing touchdown leagues where rushing is almost everything at quarterback, there I think Daniels can crush.
You've got Cliff Kingsbury there. You know, Kyler Murray as a rookie averaged over 18 points per game. I think Kyler and Jayden Daniels are both similar prospects in the sense of like what they can offer you in fantasy football. So I like Daniels as a late round. Then you secure it with a Goff, a Tua, whatever the case may be. Caleb, we maybe don't give him enough credit for his rushing ability. I mean, we just saw it in preseason.
So this is something I wanted to ask you about. So you look at Caleb over the past 2 years at USC. He's had the rushing touchdowns. He just hasn't had any of the rushing yards you'd expect.
Yeah.
So is it just that Caleb knows, hey, I'm going pick 1 overall. I'm not going to go run the football in college.
Right.
Risk anything. And maybe I get to the NFL, I go, okay, now I'm gonna let go.
He's almost like that Mahomes improviser. I don't want to say Mahomes.
No, I think that's a great comp because if Patrick Mahomes didn't have the arm that he did, Patrick Mahomes would run the ball a lot more.
Yeah.
Like you look at Mahomes in the playoffs, Mahomes runs the ball a lot more.
And but you're not designing these plays, but it's just improvisation if the play breaks down.
Exactly. But in the regular season, if you look at the rushing yards per game for Mahomes, postseason, regular season, very different.
Totally different.
Mahomes is on cruise control.
Even with a broken toe or whatever it was.
So I wonder if Caleb, obviously Caleb's not Mahomes, but if he almost did the same thing like that we'll see from Mahomes in college where the college football games don't matter as much for him. He's going to pick 1 no matter what. And then he's going to get to the NFL and he's going to run the ball a little bit more than he did. Because if you look at just the rushing yardage he had in college, that does not scream at all rushing upside at the NFL level.
Yeah.
But you watch him and you go, oh, I think this guy can.
It could be like just the red zone. The way he rushes in the red zone could be really appealing with like those rushing touchdowns. All right. I just want to finish real quick. Twitter version, 1 rookie, 30 seconds, nothing too detailed, but like you're obsessed with this rookie. You're drafting him everywhere.
I think it is Keon Coleman ultimately, mainly because of the cost. You're getting a wide receiver 5 where I think Curtis Samuel, I hate to say it, is not a good wide receiver.
That's okay.
He's had 1 year in his entire NFL career with more than 9.0 fantasy points per game in a half PPR format. Yes, ton of different quarterbacks. This is the best situation he's ever played in. But ultimately, he's been a wide receiver for forever now. He's drafted in 2017. Khalil Shakir, maybe he's decent. Maybe. We've never seen him be good. Keon Coleman has more invested into him by this team than anybody else by a wide margin. I didn't love him as a prospect.
Yeah.
But I'm believing sportsbooks and saying that the Bills are still going to be a borderline top 5 offense this year. You have no Diggs. You have no Davis. You have a ton of targets available in this offense. I think Josh Allen's great. I think Keon has a lot invested into him. And the historical data tells us that good offenses, good quarterback, almost always equals fantasy points at wide receiver.
Also, he's hilarious.
Yeah,
so
he is funny.
Anytime he drops a new clip or a meme, you can be excited about that. But all right, guys, those are rookie expectations year 1. You can tell us down below why you think we're completely wrong. We don't mind. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. All up. So I know it's exciting drafting these rookies, but let's set the right expectations. Hopefully this video has been helpful. Hey, if you're in your draft and you want to know exactly what picks I might make, we've got our cheat sheet over on the Flock Fantasy site. My guys, sleepers, boom busts, fades, and positional rankings. So If you want to have access to that, become a Mother Flocker member with the code LAND. Check out the pinned comment. Otherwise, go crush your drafts, and we'll see you in the next video. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.